So we have all our three panelists here with us. Welcome again. And we will start our panel discussion with our first thought of the day. And that is transition to the new normal of learning in unpredictable times, so pedagogy and learning performance. So I request Dr. Connie Mitchell to share her thoughts, and then we will follow with the rest of our panelists, please.
Okay, thank you, Maria. I think the thing that I'd like to share here is that, you know, we have to keep in mind, during the last decade or so, online degrees and courses, they have become fairly popular, I think. MOOCs have been around for quite some time. It's viewed as an alternative for a wide range of non-traditional students. It includes those who want to continue working full-time or raising families, and the online degree has been there. But most of the time, online degree programs and courses offered via the host school's online learning platform, although some are delivered using alternative technologies, now we have lots of platforms available like Coursera, edX, etc. Although there are subtle dissimilarities, I think the thing that I would like to point out here is that the main difference between online and traditional face-to-face learning is the fact that online education liberates the student from the usual trappings of on-campus degree programs, including like driving to school, planning their schedule around classes, and being physically present for each of their courses and doing the coursework in class, so on and so forth. So it gives you a little bit more freedom. If this sounds drastic, it's not really. The truth is the education methods and materials provided in online degree programs are often the same, if not similar to what you provide in the on-campus program.
Yes.
I'm going to throw out a quote. I'm almost done. According to Robert Monroe, Director of Online Hybrid MBA at Carnegie Mellon's University, Tepper School of Business, he's basically saying that the best online education programs actually mirror their on-campus equivalent. In other words, the quality of the education would not be compromised based on the environment being used. Yes, we did have to learn and experience new ways of student engagement that will foster active learning in an online environment. But this has been, I think, an opportunity. It has forced us to rethink our whole concept and perception of education.
No doubt, yes. Dr. Dina, would you like to add your thoughts to this, please?
Thank you, Ms. Maria. Actually, I agree with Dr. Alia that the fact that online learning was there for some time and MOOCs were there for some time and so many opportunities online were there some time kind of helped the transition not to be totally unpredictable, but only somehow unpredictable. Actually, I think this quote matches up very well with the motto of this conference, keep the wheel learning moving. Because yes, we did keep learning. And although sometimes people were having this doubt that whether this really work or not, but it worked. And I think the most important that we learned is that teachers, you have textbooks, you have curriculum, you have syllabus designers, you have, but teachers are really number one in the process, I would say, because it is their adaptability to the situation, it's their adaptability to new pedagogical practices, their adaptability to show things and use new tools is really what makes it a success, I believe. So teachers have really, I would say, bravo. I mean, we've done it and done it really well. And adaptability is really at the heart of everything we've done. We've adapted our teaching methods, we've adapted our assessment, we've adapted the way that we communicate with students. So I think it just proves that we are capable of dealing with unpredictable times once we have an open mind learning and see the big picture rather than focusing on blocks that seem to be inflexible. Learning is about flexibility and about opening up doors of learning, whatever the circumstances are.
Definitely, yes, I would totally agree. Jake, would you like to add your thoughts to it?
Yeah, I've just got three short, quick points on this. I actually come from a different background where I'm much more focused on young learner teaching, so K to 12. So it's a little bit different than the university world. But as both Connie and Dina said, I don't think this is a new normal. This is just the accelerated normal. I mean, I work in technology and in ed tech. We've been talking about this for years. We've been doing this for years. We've been driving online learning, driving app-based learning, the benefits of data and insights in education. And all what we feel is this has accelerated what we always wanted. So for us, it's a very positive thing. And I think that it's once teachers got used to this idea that they're going to have to be flexible and adapt, like Dina said, they're now starting to see the benefits, that there is things like data and insights, and learning can keep happening at home. Connie, like you said, that why would a university degree be any better if you're sitting in a room with 100,000 people or sitting online with 1,000 people? It's still the same sort of, education quality that you're getting, and also more access, right? So it opens up more access for those people who can't afford the Harvards, who can't afford the MIT. So one thing I like that's also happened is it's leveled the playing field a bit. But one more point to add here, Maria, for children, what has been the issue is it's been this amazing experience because at home they can integrate more of their real self into their classroom, that sort of connection between home and school. But as we've seen as parents, and I'm sure you guys know, is, parents having to understand education a lot more for children. Yeah. What we always used to say at the beginning of this, as the schools closed, it opened up the reality to everybody, because now I know what's happening in the school because I have to see it in my house every day. But the last thing that I do worry about on the negative side is things like the social emotional learning for children online. I just don't think it's going to be, it has had the best impact on them. So being at school is obviously better, but I hope moving forward that we take, as Dina and Connie said, that we take some of that learning and really integrate it into what we're doing.
Definitely, yes. Very interesting thoughts there. So I think this inclines to our next thought here, or our next theme, if you like, more than a question, is the future learning environment, pedagogical and technological perspective. So how we are using this in a technological perspective. And Jake is for studycat, he represents studycat here for young learners, where they're using an app for learning. And so Jake, we will start here. I think we will take your perspective here for this part, and then we will ask Dr. Dina and Dr. Connie to please extend your thoughts there. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously very passionate about integrating technology into and pedagogy. As I always say, we've integrated technology into every aspect of our life, yet education seems to be constantly trying to catch up. It's part of everything we do. We use data, as I was saying in a session I did yesterday, we use data for running, we use data for going shopping, and it should, sorry, let me just turn that off. I don't know why I still have that on.
It's okay.
Really, really quickly, sorry.
That's the home life that impacts us, as you are saying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to log out of that, everybody. But my point is that, of course, technology is not going to replace teachers. We've seen this for 100 years. The TV came in, it's going to replace everybody and it's going to change education. It didn't change it that much, right? Yeah. And then we had IWBs, interactive whiteboards, and we had CD players. But this is the last point I'll make here is, the biggest difference now is that the new technology is software. It's not hardware. Before we were just bringing in new hardware. Now we're bringing in software. The hardware doesn't change anymore. It's just a phone. It's just an iPad. But the software is integrating into our lives to enhance them. And it should be coming into education so that there is an opportunity to use software to understand learning, which is what we're all here for, to ensure learning is happening, to ensure learning keeps happening. So I think that that's where we've just got to open up and say anything can happen now. It's almost like the Wild West at the moment, right?
Yeah.
It's an exciting time. We don't know what's going to work. So let's try everything and just go for it. So that's from my point of view, from the tech point of view.
Definitely. And I think the future of learning environment, the canvas has broadened from my perspective. I think we have a larger canvas now for our learning and teaching and learning, so to speak, that goes together, obviously. Dr. Dina, would you like to add your thoughts here, please? Kindly unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Maria. I'd like to start with a quote. And I think it's very important to talk about the future because we've all been going through some kind of emergency situation when we were trying to teach, but we were not really doing all what technology can give us. So I think this quote, I like it a lot. Teachers need to integrate technology into the curriculum instead of viewing it as an add-on, an afterthought, or an event. I think for some time, when we just suddenly turned into online education, this is what we've been doing with technology, just having it as an afterthought. But I think now the curriculum will start changing and technology will be highly integrated into the curriculum. And I think I can foresee three things happening. One thing is that professional development will boost really like nowhere before. Like see what's happening now, right? People from all over the world joining your events. Previously, it was very difficult. We had to travel, and it was very challenging. Now we have so many opportunities for professional development. So I think this will really boost, and we'll have more global language speaking really more. I also expect that there will be more focus on skills than degrees. And I think this matches with what Jake was just saying. It will be more than I'm getting this degree from this university, but now we are acknowledging that people can get very good and quality training from online platforms. And so skills will be highly valued. And those who are just providing degrees have to be very careful now.
Definitely, yes.
One last thing I would say is that I see, of course, for students in schools and in colleges, we cannot actually do with online learning alone. We are, I think, missing so many important skills, interpersonal skills, communication skills, and so many other things. So I guess blended learning is very close, right, for all of us.
It scaffolds teaching and learning, but I don't think so it will help in future as much. It's not as productive as face-to-face learning is. There are obviously the positive and negative drawbacks to all of this, of any aspect of this. Dr. Connie, as this is your domain, Teaching and Learning Center Director. So
okay,
please.
Further to what both Jake and Dina have said, I think I want to emphasize the fact that the pandemic has not been easy for any of us. So when you're thinking about future learning, pedagogical practices, technological perspectives, you have to keep this in mind that we are still in the pandemic. So in education, and in particular higher education, because that's where I'm coming from, we were provided the opportunity to change our teaching and learning environment to online so that we can continue to support our students' learning opportunities. And what I think the thing that is here that both Jake and Dina are highlighting is that it has caused a paradigm shift of sorts to education as a whole. And we need to be prepared for that paradigm shift. So, and I want to focus a little bit on the students. We've been focusing on teachers and the strategies, but in reference to our students as a whole, I believe our students are doing well, considering that they also had to shift to an online environment. And we need to focus on helping them overcome their perceptions of learning as well, so that they can perform better in their courses. So it's okay to introduce the new pedagogy, the new technology, but if you're not helping your students learn how to use those in support of their learning, it can be detrimental. And they too need, so basically they need to be trained on how to learn effectively online and how to be more autonomous. I think that requires a lot of training on learning autonomy, independence, even when you're having synchronous classes happening, meaning like what we're doing right now, the face-to-face, the online, and having a class, a lecture, activities with your students. It's easy to be distracted. So you can't tell if your students are focused on you and what's happening in the classroom, because you can't see their environment. Right now, I have a virtual background. You don't know what's behind me. Okay, so you know, these are all factors we have to really be focusing on. Technology is great, and I will probably say this repeatedly throughout the day. Sometimes less is more. And you really need to focus on what's going to help your students.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Dina. Yes, so I think it extends to your thoughts, Dr. Connie, that teaching when the class is at home. So obviously we can't see what's behind you, behind that virtual background. But what do you think? Will you share your thoughts? Dr. Dina, we will start with you this time. The new normal, teaching when the class is at home. So how hard or how easy it is for you?
Actually, I'd like to build on what Dr. Alia has just said when she was talking about what's important is to see what works best for your students. Because I think it's a very big challenge for students suddenly to be at home using online with all the developments we have, but it could be quite an isolating experience.
Yeah.
And this is why, again, if you allow me, I would like to share a quote here. That I like in relation to this. The most important principle for designing lively e-learning is to see e-learning design not as information design, but as designing an experience.
Definitely, yes.
Of learning. And really, our students are going through a very difficult experience, I would say. I personally sometimes feel quite isolated. I just want to go to college and see people and talk to them. And so, what about our students? So, it's how to really manage to create an experience that is engaging for the students, that does not alienate them, that does not put them under more stress than the stress they might be already experiencing with the transition. Also, that helping them not thinking that technology, because we know that our students are more tech savvy maybe than us, but actually it's playing games is one thing, and using this for education or for learning is another. So they actually need support, and they need also to feel more relaxed sometimes and to use different tools, but at the same time, tools that can really help them engage and see the point rather than just use too many tools and make them. I like what Talia is saying, less sometimes is more. So
yes, definitely. Jake, would you like to add to this thought, please?
I'm going to reiterate what Connie just said before. One of the things we found, and we trained thousands of teachers when this first started back in February last year, was the number one thing was that people were not building the skills in their learners in how to be online. So for me, when you're teaching at home, is spend that first couple of weeks just getting especially for young learners, getting them understanding that this is a new way of learning and this is a new environment for you. Even little things, just being aware that what you have, the technology you have, they might not have in their house. They might not know how to use a mouse. You'd be surprised how many kids have never used a mouse, even just as simple as that. But also, and then rethinking that you can't just take what you've done in the classroom and do it at home is another thing. And the last one is, I think I've observed hundreds of online classes, and I work with some of the big online schools here. The thing that I think that people miss is that it's always teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student. And that really worries me if it's just one teacher to hundreds of students, or it's like this. You're one. That's not what happens in a classroom. In a classroom, learners learn from each other. And I think that the biggest missing link at the moment is we're not letting kids go into breakout rooms alone and just learn together because of this fear of, privacy and all those issues. we're now in people's homes. So I think the last thing I'll say is, which I found the most sort of confronting was, especially with children, is you're now seeing into their homes. You've never seen inside their homes before. So sometimes there's that strange relationship for a teacher where they're now getting a deeper understanding, but maybe there are things, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to keep that sort of very professional wall when you're inside their house. So one advice, especially for young learners, but maybe that's not the same with university students.
It's similar. It's quite similar, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's this real fear with young learners of letting kids learn together online because they're so afraid of, you know, privacy and all these things. But really, we know when kids are learning off each other. That's where the learning happens. That's the exciting part. The teacher sort of gives some knowledge and then the kids negotiate that knowledge together. And I think we're missing that a bit. But that's all from me on teaching at home.
Dr. Connie, would you like to add something here?
Yeah, I think I can summarize up what both Dina and Jake have been saying into like 3 skill sets that I think are extremely for both teachers and for the learners, the students. There's the technological skill set, personal, the technological skills. It's knowing which tools are going to fit the needs of your students. And this also means as an educator, I have to educate myself. If I think this tool is going to be good, I have to educate myself, but then I also have to educate my students. So, you know, you really have to think about your technological skills. The video conferencing platforms are great. Right now we're using Zoom, and there are so many other platforms out there. Apps that support learning, as Jake was saying earlier, it's the software applications that are being developed now and knowing what to choose. Creating online group activities. This is so important, Jake, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that we do have to provide that opportunity for, especially for young learners, even more so than in higher ed, because this is where they develop, you know, those social skills, knowing how to deal with people, and it does help them learn. And when you think about interpersonal skills, it helps them to be flexible. It can teach them about motivation, patience, leadership, teamwork. And when we think of the social skills, they can learn how to deal with loss, because, you know, they don't have that face-to-face interaction. And I totally understand where Jake is coming from, because I have my young nephews now, and when they are online versus when they're in the classroom, you can see a difference. You know, and my sister-in-law, she'll send me little video clips of, you know, my 4-year-old in preschool online, and it's just, it's hilarious. But, you know, it's important that they get that experience, and they can develop the awkward moments, you know, and how do you deal with online fatigue? And most importantly, we have to learn to celebrate successes. So when our students, or when even as faculty do something that's great, celebrate those successes, because, you know, bravo, everybody is doing a great job right now. Everybody is doing a great job.
Thank you. Great, thank you so much. So some of your favorite remote teaching and learning tools so far. So Dr. Connie, would you like to start from here?
Okay, sure, no problem. I have like a collection of things that I like to use, and a lot of it stems from my institution and what we have available. So I've become comfortable with these tools. Google Classroom, I think is great. Jamboard, or any online whiteboard technologies. And then there's Google has all of these lovely extensions. You can use Post-its, you can write on if you're on a website, you can write, you can do all kinds of things, you know, making certain, I'm somebody, when I'm in the classroom, I'm writing on the board all the time. So this is, it gives me that flexibility to be able to do that. Of course, the video conferencing tools, and as we've been talking about, the apps, the extensions, there are so many out there. There's Kahoot, there's Quizlet, and those were being used even before the pandemic came into being. My best piece of advice is to choose the tool that will support your students' learning. And remember, I'm going to say it again, sometimes less is more. We don't want to overwhelm our students.
Definitely it is.
Ourselves.
Sure, yes. Dr. Dina.
Actually coming from the same journey, working for the same institution like Dr. Alia. So I think I will also have to talk about Google and again about Google Classrooms and same more or less the same tools. But I would say that one thing that I really loved, because at the beginning we did not have access to, we were using Google Meet and we did not have access to breakout rooms. When we had breakout rooms, that was great because as Jake said, we were really missing that learners be learning from each other. I really agree with them a lot. And when we had breakout rooms, that was great because students started to really interact and have different kinds of engagement in the classroom and extend their social skills and so on. So that was very interesting for me to have. Also, I think when I like a lot that we're using a combination of synchronous and asynchronous tools. I think this is really for the best of the students. Not all students are at the same level. Not all students can catch up quickly while you're working. So the fact that you are combining synchronous and asynchronous tools has really worked very well, I think, for students in my classes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Dina. Jake, from young learners' perspective?
Well, and also from a China perspective. So we unfortunately in China we are not privy to the wonders of Google. So we have to cope without using any Google products. So I would say I just want to make 2 points. Is whatever the new cool things that we're using, I like when I see schools that use it in class and it can be adapted for out of class. So it's not like, oh, when we're out of class, we use this tool. And when we're in class, we use this tool. So if you're using one of these whiteboards, use it in class as well sometimes. So there's that connect between the home and school. And I love the fact that these new tools have allowed that connection between home and schools. So things like the things I've liked, platform called ClassIn. ClassIn is kind of like it's sort of Zoom, but the Ferrari version. You know, it has great breakout rooms and all these different activities. But the thing is, you can use it in class as well. There's no reason why you would separate it. So the students don't feel like there's a disconnect. That's number one. And the other big one is trying to use tools that you already use in real life. Like, for example, in China, we have WeChat is our social media. The thing is that you can integrate that into the class and out of class. You can share videos, you can have online classes, you can share chats, you can share voice, you can share pictures. So because it's a tool that mum and dad are using anyway, and it's already integrated, it's already easy to use, I found that schools that adopted using tools they were already using much more of a smoother flow between the school and the home. So yeah, those things, ClassIn, and of course studycat, which is just an amazing tool for anyone that wants to keep their kids learning when their schools are closed.
Definitely, yes. Thank you so much. So we will engage the audience here at this point in the middle of the panel discussion with a quick poll. So if all the participants kindly navigate themselves to the chat box, and we have shared a link with you when you can participate in this poll. So let's reflect in one word, share your thoughts about our discussion so far. So let's see if our audience are agreeing with our panelists so far, and then we will move on with the rest. If you look at the chat box, we have one answer, agreed. Okay, inspiring, thank you.
That might have been us panelists writing what we thought.
Okay. Please go ahead. Effective, thoughtful.
Oh, agreed is very popular.
Enlightening, interesting. Love it. So I think we're serving the purpose. Our panelists are doing well. Bravo, relevant. We take another 30 seconds for this poll and then we'll move on with our discussion. Thank you so much for your thoughts. So the largest word is great. So you all are getting all thumbs up. Interesting, agreed, and great are the largest words that we can see here. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. Fruitful, relatable, interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your feedback. I think we will stop the poll here and we will move on with our discussion. Thank you so much, participants, for sharing your thoughts. We will have a Q&A session after a couple of more discussion questions, and then we can take your questions at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Maria. Just a reminder that you're running out of time. You just got 10 minutes left in that panel discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll have a quick discussion. Best practices for making active learning a priority in the virtual classroom. I think motivation is something that teachers are struggling. Keeping students engaged and motivated is something that teachers are struggling these days. So Dr. Connie, would you like to add your thoughts here about this?
I think the key thing here is communication. And what do I mean by this? Communication is basically the key to reaching out to the students, being transparent and accessible. This is one of the key things. And I think the second thing is organization, right? When we're in the face-to-face classroom, you have your routine established, but in the online, you need to establish a routine, and you need to, I like to think like organize, you know how you organize your kitchen? And you have everything in a certain place and you know where everything is. Now in your online classroom, you need to make it easily accessible to students, just like our kitchens. I hope that's a good analogy. I hope it's a good analogy. Pardon?
Yes,
because Maria, I know you love baking, so come on. And you know, you have to find ways of really getting your students engaged. And I have to emphasize, you know, we're talking and we're comparing, you know, the synchronous, asynchronous, and being online versus face-to-face. There are a lot of similarities, but you cannot treat the online synchronous class like you're face-to-face, because you're not. Okay, so you do have to educate yourself on online teaching methodologies and pedagogies, and what are the best practices. And we've shared some ideas here today, both Jake, Dina, and myself. I think it's good that you are here because you want to learn more and you want to improve what's happening in the online environment. I'm not certain about all of the countries what's happening, but here in Saudi, we're still online. Predominantly, our classes will be online till the end of this academic year. And then we don't know if we'll remain online or if we'll go back face-to-face, or if there's going to be a hybrid situation for a while. So last point I want to make is we need to think outside of the box. If we want our students interacting with us, their peers, and the material that we've covered in class, because there are basically three ways that we want our students to engage in our classes. One, with us, with their peers, and then obviously the content that we are covering. So we have to be creative in how we get them to do that in the online environment, and that does involve training them how to do so.
Yeah. So finding the harmony of balance in our lesson plannings, if you like, because we sometimes we're used to face-to-face planning. So the harmony and balance is getting your own unbalance at times with the virtual classroom. And again, then learning dies out with the over planning of the lesson, I guess. Yes.
Exactly. And you know, sometimes, especially I would imagine with the young learners, you want to create activities that involve some kind of movement. Get them up, move, stretch, do something, instead of sitting in front of a computer screen for 6 hours a day.
I had that written down. That was one of my points I was going to make.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Dina, a quick word, and then we will move on to our next question.
I would agree. I just want to agree with Dr. Alia. First of all, communication as leader. I think I guess whenever we are actually planning our sessions, we always try to think of the different ways of interaction in the classroom. So I think while we're doing this for online learning, we really need to think of ways of interaction. Especially in university, it doesn't have to be a lecture, me talking all the time, but I have to plan when are the students giving input, when are they working in pairs, when are they having a group project. I think just diversifying the forms of interaction would really help them engage. And one more thing, since we're into technology, we have also to know what are the very small tools that can help us engage them more. See, Miss Maria, now we've just done a little poll, and everybody was suddenly engaged, right? So it's a
Yes.
mixture of both, managing the forms of interaction in the
Yes.
classroom, and at the same time, getting to more knowledgeable of the tools that you can use technologically, very simple tools that engage people more at the same time.
Definitely, yes. Yeah, so we have talked about best practices. Let's talk about lessons learned with creating effective emergency remote learning environment for students. So Jake, we will start with you from this perspective. And what are your thoughts?
Well,
just a quick one.
Okay, very quick, and it's kind of relates to the last question as well. I think the lessons I learned was that you flipped classroom and giving content to people before they come to the online class is so important, because then when you come to the class, you can make it meaningful, make it task-based, make it focused. Why would anyone want to sit? Well, they're doing it today because we're talking, but if you're just going to force students to sit in front of a screen and stare at it, they could do that on their own, at their own pace, stop, start, and then they'll be able to come. And when they're in class, some recent research by Ross Thorburn, who's presenting later, showed that by just simply flipping over class, making them meaningful, making them task-based, making that there has to be interaction involved in the class, then it made more learning outcomes. And the last point is lesson learned was exactly what you said before, Connie, is that sitting down, staring is such a long time for people. So why do we not want to get people up and about, moving, integrating some of their home life into the lesson? So that's it for me. Oh, and sorry, the last point for lesson learned is don't assume teachers all know. Sometimes students are more digitally literate and more able to cope than the teacher. So the kids are fine and the students are fine, but it's the teachers who are having a struggle, and we forget that sometimes.
Definitely. Dr. Dina, a quick word, lessons learned.
First of all, you need to keep learning all the time. You always need to learn, because you never know, what is up there, and we need to adapt. Number two, when we're learning, when we're teaching, we have to focus on our course learning outcomes, and not necessarily the exact materials that we were using. As long as we're achieving the course learning outcomes, you can always adapt the materials, you can always adapt the assessment. And one last thing is that students, although as we said, most of them could be digitally literate, but some of them really do need support to make the transition into using this digital literacy for education.
Thank you so much. Dr. Connie.
I think I'm going to summarize it in like 2 short sentences, kind of short. I think too many to count. Too many lessons have been learned to count, but most importantly, it has been a chance to rethink education, to evaluate our own current practices and try to find ways that will help us support our learners as they move forward into their future. And we need to think of the pandemic as an opportunity. I cannot emphasize this enough. An opportunity for success.
Definitely, thank you. So it's about creating, again, a balance and understanding where we stand and learn from the lessons rather repeating the mistakes all over again. Thank you so much. Okay, now a shift from students to our fellow educators. Just to wrap up this discussion, maintaining a connection with fellow educators, how challenging is it? Dr. Connie, being the Dean of College of Humanities, and Dr. Dina as well is the leader of the research. So they're both at positions where they have to maintain a connection between their fellow educators all the time. And Jake as well as a learning experience. So we will start with Dr. Connie with the start.
I don't know if I would use the word challenging as I would different. In in ways being online has helped me connect more with friends and colleagues from across the globe using video calls or Zoom meetings or whatever application happens to be available to everyone in whatever country they are currently in. In an ideal world, I think we would like face-to-face and make use of what we have learned during this pandemic to continue to grow as educators that support student learning and well-being. This is the most important thing, is that we want to continue to grow, support both the learning experience and the well-being, not just of our students, but of ourselves. You know, we have to think about ourselves and our work-life balance. And sometimes it might be a struggle to not, you know, because you online, this means 24/7, you know, so you have to be respectful of your colleagues' time, their personal time. Before it was click clack, you're in the office and you go home, but now it's like you're online, so you can't expect people to respond on the weekend like this. It's their weekend and it's their right to have that weekend. Okay, I'll stop. Thank you.
Yes. So, Dr. Dina, would you like? Thank you so much, Dr. Pan. Dr. Dina,
for me, it was online connections was a blessing. We were having our international symposium, which was supposed to be done on campus, and then we had to turn it all of a sudden into online. It was in November, and we had attendees and participants from all over the world that we could have never had if we had arranged the conference on campus. In the last few months, I have to say that I've communicated with people that I never used to communicate with, and professional development and also research projects. Both, I would say, are going in a much smoother way because we can communicate and collaborate with people from different parts of the world. I see this as a blessing, actually. Yes, for connections.
Definitely. Yes, Jake.
I'll make it quick. I totally agree with you both, Dina and Connie. I have met more people, learned from more people, and made more connections in the last year and a half than I did in the 5 years before. And I travel the world for work. So what I'm excited about is all these people that I've met. When we can travel again, we can finally come and meet you all face to face. But I mean, even if an event like today, Maria, I don't think would have happened if we didn't have the COVID thing. So it's a wonderful event. And I think that's the outcome. That's the positive outcome of all of this. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. So the final question. Many companies are intending to shift additional workers to on-site to permanently remote roles. What are your thoughts? Quick thoughts. Jake, do you want to add here?
I mean, I've worked remotely for the last few years, and I was used to it before, so it was very easy for us. I think that there'll be a combination of both, and the only, as Connie said, as long as people realize that there is a shift, there is a difference between when you're off and you're on, but as companies learn to do it, it will be fine. I think it will be fine. I think it's a positive.
Yes, Dr. Dina?
I agree. I think the option must be made available, but of course it will be different based on the kind of job we're doing. I think for teaching, you will need still to be there for the students on campus for some time, maybe blended learning, as I was saying, but the option should be made available. It has so many positives. So yes, we should go for it, I guess.
Thank you. Dr. Connie, where's your vote? On which side?
Okay, for me, I think the pandemic should be viewed as an opportunity and not as a problem. And we need to look for the positives and learn how to grow. So this includes training on the best practices for remote working. That includes like the education. It does include the educational field, but in all areas actually. And as we move further into the digital era, our perception of work-life balance will continue to shift. And we need to prepare for this, be ready for our future.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your insight. We are really grateful and thankful to our panelists who joined us today. We will stop the discussion here, but we will take questions from the attendees. They can again use the same link, the poll link, to add their questions here where panel can read them. you can use the link that was shared for the poll to add your questions here. Or the moderator, if you could kindly read the questions if there are any in the chat box, please.
Hello, I've just shared the link and I'll just see if we can get some questions here. We have a few comments and some of them are asking, can we make sure that low-level young learners are engaged and involved with their cameras off? And would you please suggest insistence on all cameras and would you make this optional?
Anyone of you? Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it just because I work so much with young learners and the cameras. I don't think you can guarantee a productive class with the camera off, but I understand that there are issues with that. But I mean, this is institution level, right? So every institution needs to have, I would have invited all the parents on first and exactly, taught them about how the cameras work, showed them the policies. I mean, there were schools going into online learning with no policy on privacy between home and video, right? Because those policies didn't exist before. So, but I mean, I don't really believe, it's just my opinion, that you can have a very productive class without hearing, but you need to be able to see some sort of, especially with kids, some sort of interaction, because it is such a, so I don't think you can do it without the camera, but you need to have very, very strict policies in your school about who signs in, only the parents can sign in, etc.
We have some couple of questions here as well. If anybody would like to address Dr. Connie and Dr. Dina El Dakhs, you can read them and would like to share your thoughts.
Some of the questions aren't fully written. Somebody wrote, we recently had an event for employers who talked quite excitedly about what the learners had gained from having to work online. What skills or qualities, I'm guessing, do you recommend? I think it goes back to the three that I said, the technological, the interpersonal, and social skills. You really need to know how to incorporate these different aspects into the online environment, whether it's as an employee or as an educator or as a student. You need to be able to know how to navigate the different skills. And at PD, professional development, cannot emphasize this enough. Professional development is important for everyone involved in the remote workplace.
Definitely. Dr. Dina, would you?
There was a question about how to motivate who's down, if you can go down. I think there was a question about how to motivate adult university students to engage in the classroom. And I would say, again, if you could just make sure that the students are enjoying an authentic learning experience, and that they have input into what's going on, they will be engaged. And let me just share an experience where we were having an exchange program between Prince Sultan University students and Whiddon University students, and Whiddon University students were still learning Arabic. So it was like quite challenging for them, but still the classroom was extremely engaging because first they were talking about authentic issues. They were really sharing the differences in culture between Saudi Arabia and the UK. So there were real questions they really wanted to ask and they really wanted to know. So authenticity made them really engage, even if they had not mastered the language well. Plus, when they had a lot of input, like each one of them were coming and really wanted to share part of their story of the culture. So having input and having authenticity, I guess, really make people engage.
Definitely, yes.
Maria, can I just answer? There's one question here about assessment. There's a few people asking about assessment and worrying about cheating. I don't think that online assessment is as, I think it's more reliable. In the future, it will be more reliable because you can increase the amount of assessment so you can have more information coming. You can, and also this idea of cheating. I mean, we all do our banking online. We all do all these things online. So I know that Google, Duolingo is a big language learning app that does assessment now, where they're actually tracking your eye movement as well. So they know where you're looking. They have monitors coming in to see if you're doing this. one of the biggest movements in education now is what's going to happen with online assessment. And I think it will become actually the normal, because you can be so much more reliant on the data that's coming through and you can do more with it. So I think soon you'll start to see a lot more online assessment and the reliability of that.
Thank you so much. I wish we could continue longer, but
Yeah, sorry.
We exceeded our time. Anyways, thank you so much once again. I really appreciate all three of our panelists taking time out and for your commitment to present at our conference today. Thank you so much, Dr. Connie, Dr. Dina, and Jade. Bye for now. We will continue speaker after this. So much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye,
Maria.
Dr. Connie.
Bye,
Bye,
Dr.
Jake.
Dina.
Nice
Good to
meet you. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Miss Maria.